guys. How's it been? I know we don't usually have like this type of conversations, but I just wanna try something different today. You know, I've been thinking about how, and I feel like this is an open-ended question. So I've been thinking about how hurts can keep us apart.
How do you mean?
Um, well, in my practice, I've learned that even simple acts like taking a moment to listen and be kind can help, heal deep wounds. And I just want to know what you all see as the first step to rebuilding trust.
Thanks, Emmanuel. For me, it starts with listening. Islam teaches that strength lies in patience and understanding. Abdul Ghaffar Khan exemplified this by using non-violence to resolve conflict, proving that true change comes from connection, not force. Likewise, Nelson Mandela chose dialogue over revenge, uniting a divided nation. Islam emphasizes justice and reconciliation by acknowledging past pain while committing to fairness, and it helps rebuild trust and move forward.
Yeah, I agree. In my community, we kind of use simple ceremonies where we come together, we share our stories, and say sorry for the past. Because it's not about blaming each other; it's about healing together. It reminds me of how Caesar Chavez worked to give dignity back to the people who felt ignored, basically, right? Because sometimes just sitting in a circle talking about our pain, our past hurts, and everything like that is usually the first step into reconnecting, right? And I feel what another important aspect or important feature to these kind of meetings too is that we don't consider it as a formal thing, because at the end of the day, we're looking to discuss it through a personal lens.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. From where I stand as someone without a religious framework to lean on, to fall back on, building trust is also about having clear ways for us to work together, for us to plan and work together towards a shared goal. We need honest conversation and practical steps. So these could include things like regular meetings and shared goals, that everyone's on the same page about how to accomplish what we would like to in our communities. These regular meetings, these shared goals, let everyone know that their voice counts within the community. When people see real results from their input, it builds hope and trust in these relationships. So peaceful organization also requires a strength in the community. It requires understanding of differing viewpoints. And all parties involved should be working towards a common goal through a clear shared plan.
Okay. For me, I've noticed that so much of the pain we carry comes from not feeling heard or seen. Once again, in my practice, I sometimes remind myself that even small moments of like mindfulness, like the one we had in class, reminds, like it's a definite reminder that we're all connected. For me, I really feel so. So has anybody experienced moments where they felt really connected with other people?
Yeah, I have. That was a few years ago when I attended a community gathering where people shared personal stories. It wasn't a grand event, just a room full of honest conversation. But it made me realize that we all share similar struggles. And it brought to my mind about Khan's idea that true strength is overcoming our own weakness through understanding.
Yeah, I think I know that feeling as well. I remember one evening at a local gathering. We were just sat in a circle and we talked about our losses and our hopes. And just having that simple moment of shared vulnerability was very powerful, right? It wasn't about pointing fingers, basically. It was about saying, I see you and I understand. Because that's how we start to rebuild our community, right? We consider it as having, understanding, having grace for each other, and having the desire to want that change for the best of everyone, because at the end of the day, we live together with each other and with one another, right?
Yeah, I love that idea and the emphasis on positive communication in the community. And from a practical point of view, we need to really be sure that these conversations will eventually lead towards positive actions. So the techniques that we will utilize in this, in these shared meetings will ultimately determine our results in the end. By committing to this positive communication and cooperative organization, we give ourselves and everyone involved a better chance to achieve a positive outcome. So, for example, I've seen communities that will come together to clean up a local park, pick up litter, remove graffiti, plant trees, things that really work towards positively impacting their community together in a concerted effort. So working side by side with your neighbors shows that every small act will contribute to a better future for everyone involved. It really is like building trust brick by brick at a time.
Exactly, you know. I feel like when we work together, even on like something as meager or small as a community garden, like a perfect example, even though I know we haven't gone to this point in the class, but like Matai Wangari, she started from just, you know, it was small villages, and then she yearned for something more, and you know, it expanded into something like amazing. I feel like when we read it at the end of the day in class, we both understand. But where I'm going at is her activism was rooted in like building trees or bringing trees back to her home country, and then there's some also, I want to call it side quests that she did, and you know, before she sadly died of cancer. But yeah, when we, even something as small as community gardens, we rebuild bonds, and it's a great reminder that, you know, nothing stands alone. Each act of care ripples out and touches other people, others.
Right. But we also need to address the deeper issues that keep us apart. We can't ignore past conflicts if we want to move forward. So healing starts by acknowledging those wounds and working together for fairness and mutual respect. As known, Islam teaches that true peace is built on justice. So when people commit to fairness, sincerity, and trust, reconciliation becomes possible. And it's about taking small but meaningful steps toward unity.
Yeah, acknowledging pain is very essential. It can't be something that just goes unattended or is ignored, you know, because in our tradition, for example, we think of forgiveness as a process and not a one-time act. You know, we say it as it's not a feeling, but it's an action being taken. You know, we have to admit our mistakes and work together to fix what's broken. This is something that even Cesar Chavez, you know, showed us when he makes his faith with practical action to restore dignity. You know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree, Samuel. And as the nonviolent theorist that we cover in this class, Dr. Michael Nagler said, nonviolent action necessitates a redress of grievances in order to work towards repair and restoration of the human relationship. So to keep that process moving, we could set up small groups within these relationships we're trying to build or the communities we're trying to mend. And these small groups could focus on specific issues, and the regular feedback from these sessions, as well as clear and simple goals, can really help us to see progress in our efforts. When people see that their efforts make a difference and that their input is taken into consideration and taken into value, that encourages everyone involved to stay involved and work towards the efforts.
Well, honestly, I feel like I want to also bring an example of like some of the things we've done in class, but I feel like our professor's idea of putting us in small groups is basically trying to communicate what you just said. So I really love the idea of small groups. I feel like it's a way of creating space where everyone feels like they belong, and you know, they can contribute one way or the other. It can be as small as even, you know, maybe sending a text message or helping with paper or whatever, but you know, everybody's doing something at least to just contribute to the future of whatever the specific goal is. So even if we don't talk about it often or directly, our everyday choices, like, you know, listening and helping, are some of the ways that guide us away from conflict and towards peace.
Yeah. That quiet strength in Abdul Ghaffar Khan is what I admire. His message wasn't loud or aggressive, just about a steady inner struggle against injustice, like a kind of strength that comes from discipline and service, not just by force.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing in the indigenous and Christian traditions, right? It's about healing and how it isn't just a grand gesture, but it's about an everyday act, of the apologizing, the lending of hand, and just general showing care for one another, right? It not only does it, say in the Christian faith, a very common phrase that we use is to pick up your cross every day, which is meant to be a representation of having the conscious effort or having the conscious decision to do so every day, right? It's something that we link to how we perceive love. It's something that we consider it as an action more than just a feeling. When we do this together, it's something that we can use to build a future where we all have respect for one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as we all know, we don't often label these types of actions as nonviolence in everyday life.
True.
But our way of handling this conflict through conversation and through teamwork does speak volumes, and I think is in line with nonviolent practices. So our approach really shows that real change doesn't come from fighting, and it doesn't come from conflict. It comes from cooperation and understanding with the parties involved. And when we engage in this nonviolent action with one another, we draw on the best within ourselves in order to elicit the best from those around us. In this effort, we elevate the human dignity of all involved. It's borrowed and paraphrased from Gandhi.
Okay. I feel like we should take a moment to reflect and summarize what we've talked about today. We talked about how healing starts with listening, admitting our past pains, traumas, taking those little, steps one day at a time together. As I think the saying goes, it takes 7 days to build a habit, and it takes, I think, 30 days to break down the habit. So when we build these habits, we're not just mending old wounds, we're setting a course for a united future.
Right. And even though we haven't shouted nonviolence at every turn, it's clear that our commitment to understanding and empathy guides us. Like Islam teaches that peace is not just the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. True reconciliation must be built on mutual respect and a shared vision for a better future.
Yeah, our path may come from different traditions, but it all leads to the same goal, a place where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. That shared vision keeps us moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm really encouraged by what we've all shared and talked about today from our unique viewpoints and unique backgrounds. And we now have a blueprint for an honest conversation moving forward. Share projects, clear steps to monitor this progress in our efforts. This isn't really about loud declarations. It's about building trust and hope with every action that we take in working towards our shared goal. We may subscribe to different systems of belief or non-belief, but in the end, that really shouldn't prevent us from all coming together and learning to reconcile and learn from one another in our shared humanity and our pursuit of nonviolent practice in everyday life.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for their honesty and commitment.